my name is Savannah Holcomb, and today I'm going to be talking about America's early government. I'm going to start off with a quote by George Washington. Quote, "Citizens by birth or by choice, the name American, which belongs to you, in your national capacity must always exalt the just pride of patriotism." In today's presentation, I'm going to be going over the timeline of significant events that formed the American government, how the government is made up and explained, and the influential founders within the government. This is the timeline and history of our government. Just a couple key points is in 1636, the Pilgrim's Code of Law was created. This was the first official covenant that was ever declared official in history. 1776, the Declaration of Independence was signed, sealed, and delivered. 1771 to 1781, the Articles of Confederation was created or was adopted. 1787, the Constitution of the United States was written. 1787, 1788, the Federalist Papers, it was a combination of 85 essays supporting the ratification of the Constitution. 1789 to 1791, the Bill of Rights was made, proposing the ratification of the first 10 amendments. Here's a couple more key points that made up our government, what we know today, like the U.S. Department of Labor being established, the Civil Rights Act, the Department of Agriculture established, the Bill of Rights being approved. So let's talk about how our government is built. We have three branches of government: the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. The legislative branch is the lawmaking branch. This branch is divided into two houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate. For a legislative act to be passed, both the House of Representatives and the Senate must pass the bill at the same time together by majority vote. It then goes to the president, who can either veto it or sign it into a law. The executive branch is the day-to-day administration-making branch. So this is basic decisions that are made every day. This is led by the president, but also includes the vice president, the cabinet, the State Department, and 13 other individual agencies. This branch is also responsible for fulfilling foreign policy and diplomacy. The judicial branch is the branch that handles the law under the Supreme Court. This branch of government encompasses the federal judiciary, which includes 13 members of the U.S. Court of Appeals and 94 federal judicial district courts. So, how do we ensure that we keep all of these branches of government in line and equal? First let me read another quote by George Washington. Quote, "Government is not the reason. It is not eloquence, it is a force. Like fire, it is a dangerous servant and a fearful master. Never for a moment should it be left to irresponsible action." End quote. So we created something called checks and balances. Quote, "In framing a government which is to be administered by men over men, the great difficulty is this. You must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place obliged to control itself." James Madison. This quote was written in the Federalist Papers to ensure that the branches of government were always kept in line and one was never stronger than another on purpose. Here are a couple of the rules that were created to ensure fairness and harmony, but one of the main ones is within the legislative branch, each house of Congress serves as a check on each other for possible abuses of power. So, who are the people who helped us form this so-called government from the very beginning? I'm sure you know them all. We have Alexander Hamilton, George Washington, and Thomas Paine. Alexander Hamilton was a famous writer, and because of this and his stubborn wit, he was one of the most influential leaders in helping drafting and writing the Constitution. He also led the American to victory at Yorktown. George Washington started his career as a military leader in the American Revolution. Also, his writings and journals also helped form the Constitution that we know today. Washington resigned from the military in December of 1783, and in 1787, he started working closely with the political side of America to help form this government. In 1789, he started his journey to become the first president of the United States. Thomas Paine is the author of the famous Common Sense pamphlet. This pamphlet was so groundbreaking and so influential in America because it was one of the first times that Americans felt that they were being properly advocated for against the British government. He was also called the Forgotten Founder very commonly. So to summarize everything I just talked about, The history of our government is incredibly important. The fact that we have to know what our government was built on and our values between the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence is so important. Understanding this can literally make or break our lives. It is a life or death. And honoring the people that ran and fought for this country is so important to valuing the freedom that we have every day in our everyday lives. To conclude, I have a question for you. How are you valuing and serving our country to keep our core values that our founding fathers created? Quote, "Government is the strongest of which every man feels himself a part." Thomas Jefferson. Thank you for listening.